people in the Philippines are struggling to recover from last week's floods, as well as the aftermath of Typhoon Parma, which hit northern Luzon over the weekend. We spoke to 20-year-old flood survivor Joseph Catan about his family's experiences over the past week. We also checked in with UNICEF Philippines country representative Vanessa Tobin about the recovery efforts. Typhoon Parma hit Philippines over the weekend, mostly the northern Luzon area. Tell us a little bit about the impact of that typhoon.
We were lucky in some ways that Parma hit northern Luzon, and now it's hovering, as you know, over. But there was still quite extensive damage. You had 16 dead, 4 injured, and you've got 40,000 families, nearly 200,000 people affected. But we also have the problems in terms of roads that have been damaged up there and bridges, so access to those areas becomes more difficult as well.
Vanessa, tell me a little bit about the situation right now with the floods from last week.
There are still in the region of about 60,000 families living within evacuation centres. The total number that's been impacted are nearly 4 million people in 12 regions now. And half of those that have been impacted, the 4 million, are children. So obviously, we're still working closely with the government on the response level. And some areas are still inaccessible. You've still got major flooding in areas of Pasig, of Taguig. So, and there hasn't been yet any ability to drain out those areas. So people still don't have access to their houses in those areas.
When we spoke to UNICEF's health chief in Philippines last week, Dr. Hotink mentioned that there was a concern about disease from the stagnant water there. I'm wondering whether that concern has diminished at all or whether it's still very much a reality.
I think there's a big worry from dengue fever. When you've got stagnant water, the ability, of course, for mosquitoes to breed, dengue fever is obviously a major concern. There has been some skin diseases that we've had some concern about. We're also concerned about pneumonia because obviously people have been wet. They haven't had, sufficient clothing. They haven't had blankets, and particularly for children. And the elderly, there is a concern that they're kept warm enough so that we don't have outbreaks of pneumonia as well.
My name is Joseph Catan. I'm 20 years old. I live in San Mateo, Rizal. It is a province near Metro Manila.
Where were you when the flooding started, and what was your experience then?
Luckily, I'm inside our house because I have no classes back then because that was Saturday. However, my parents were not around that time, so I was really afraid, and telecommunication services were not available that time. There were no electricity, no radio or television. So you will just wonder what's happening outside the house.
You mentioned that some of your family's properties were affected. Can you tell us how?
Yes, few of my relatives live in the downtown city. It is actually a valley. So their properties were destroyed. Their entire house was wiped out by the floods. And after that, after the water subsides, the mud also emerges. So it's not just water. Mud are like 3 to 4 feet in height. So it is really difficult for them. Until now, they are still cleaning their houses. So all my relatives in the downtown experienced that.